Hello BookTube. Today I'm going to take you with me on a little book shopping trip to Hay-on-Wye. Hay-on-Wye is a town in South Wales that became internationally recognised as the world's first book town, and it is full of independent bookshops. I don't live too far from Hay, so me and my husband do go fairly regularly for a little pick-me-up when we're in the mood for cute town vibes, book shopping, popping into loads of independent shops for crafts and things like that. I didn't film an intro to this before we left because I'm really not a morning person. I do pretty much all of my filming in the evening or afternoon, so I'm filming this retrospectively. I'm gonna switch to all of the clips that I took while we were in Hay, and then we're gonna come back and I'm gonna show you everything that I bought. I hope that gave you a little taste of Hay-on-Wye for anyone who hasn't been or has never heard of it before. It's one of my favourite places in the whole world. I love going to Hay and it always just really lifts my mood. But I wanted to show you everything that I bought. I was pretty reserved for this trip. I still bought a fair few books, don't get me wrong, but when we go to Hay, because there's so many used bookstores, I do tend to go a little bit crazy. This time I was actually pretty reserved and I'm pretty pleased with myself for being more selective with the books that I picked up. First book that I picked up was one that I don't think I'd heard of before, and that is Whenever You're Ready by Runya Katz. And this is a sapphic romance. I found it in the Addyman bookstore, I think, which mostly has new books but at quite low prices. This was only, I think, $4.95, I want to say. It was literally yesterday and I can't remember. This caught my eye because it's a sapphic romance. It initially struck me because it sounds very similar in plot to a book by Alison Cochrane. Here We Go Again, I think it's called. I haven't read it yet. I definitely want to because I loved The Charm Offensive by Alison Cochrane. And this is another road trip romance that sounds quite similar in plot, and I was like, wait a minute, but then Alison Cochrane has blurbed it, so I guess it's fine. I don't know, this might have even come first, I don't know. This seems to follow a group of friends and there's sort of messy relationship dynamics and there seems to be some kind of falling out. One of the friends unfortunately passes away, and then I think the other three friends eventually come back together to go on a kind of American road trip in the honour of their friend that's passed away. This sounds like it's going to be quite tender. It's going to, I imagine, deal a lot with grief. Ooh, there's another book by her on the back. I don't know if that one's gay though. It sounds like it's going to be quite messy, quite heartfelt, and very sort of human. So I'm excited for this. I really struggle, and I don't know if I'm going to get hate for saying this. I would understand if I did. I really struggle with sapphic romance. I've read sapphic books that I love. So like Sunburn is like my immediate like pick for like one of my favorite sapphic books of all time. But when it comes to sapphic romance, I've really struggled, and like maybe I will do a vlog around this at some point, trying to find a sapphic romance that I really love. But I haven't read any like contemporary or historical sapphic romances that I've really loved, and it's annoying because I love sapphics, so I want to read sapphic books and really love them. But yeah, I haven't really had any luck with the sapphic romances that I've read in the past, so I'm really hoping that this will be a winner for me, because I'm really so ready to have a sapphic romance in my life that I like fall head over heels in love with. That is whenever you're ready. The next two books I picked up in Hay-on-Wye, which is my favourite bookstore in Hay. Without a doubt, I love Hay-on-Wye so much. The owner is so lovely. I've had a chat with him on a couple of occasions when I've been in there, and he's like the sweetest guy ever. And I just love the vibe in the store. It's always so welcoming, so bright, so joyful, and their selection is really varied. The only other queer bookstore near me is Panna de Gay, which is a really tiny independent bookstore that has a selection of books inside the Queer Emporium in Cardiff. So it's not even its own bookstore. They literally have a couple of shelves of books in another store. So I was really happy to see an independent queer bookstore opening up in Hay. I love that store with my whole heart. So I picked up two books while I was there. I think every book that I picked up was sapphic, or at least queer, but I think most of these are sapphic. A bit of a theme to this book, all it would seem. Picked up Gender Theory, which sounds like it's a sort of sapphic coming of age story, so I'm hoping it's going to give me those like yearning Sunburn vibes that I've been longing for ever since I read that book. It follows a girl who goes to university, starts to come into her own in her like sexuality and exploring herself, and she seems like she develops this friendship with a girl called Ella, and over the next few years they kind of explore what that friendship could be, if it could be anything more. I don't really know much about it other than that. It just sounds like it's gonna follow the trajectory of this relationship between these two girls that develops from friendship into possibly something more. I've heard amazing things about this. I don't think I've heard a bad word said about this book. Apparently the writing is beautiful, and I've had a lot of luck, I have to say, when it comes to sapphic literary fiction, where I haven't been so successful in sapphic romance and contemporary. Sapphic literary fiction really lets me down, so I'm really excited to read that one. The next book is a little bit unusual for me because I don't tend to read a lot of mythology retellings, but this is The Palace of Eros by Caro de Robertis. Again, this is one I had my eye on when it first came out, but I'm reluctant to buy books in hardback. I don't know what myth this is based off of. From the back I can see that it's about Psyche, Aphrodite and Eros. It says on the back that it is gloriously anarchic and seductive. A gender-fluid retelling of this classic myth is a masterpiece. Sounds like it's going to be very gender-bendy, potentially also sapphic. And I've heard really good things about the author's writing, but I've never read from them before. So I'm really excited to pick this one up. I'm not always, like I said, drawn to myth retellings, so I don't know a lot of the source material. I've never studied mythology or like Greek and Roman myth or anything like that. Sometimes I find that when I read myth retellings, because it feels like they've got so many plot beats that they have to kind of conform to, sometimes it just feels a little bit repetitive. It doesn't feel very inventive. I don't know. That's just coming from someone who really isn't very familiar with mythology at all. So I could be full of shit. It just, I'm not always drawn to them. Have read Song of Achilles. It made me weep, obviously. I've bawled my eyes out for like the last 40-50 pages of that book. But other myth retellings I've read, I haven't really been so enamoured with. I've enjoyed them, they've been fine, but I'm not like gagging to read more of them, you know what I mean? But this one sounds like it could be a lot of fun. And I'm always down to read something that plays around with gender. Natasha Pulley also did a myth retelling The last book that she published was The Hymn to Dionysus. So if I get on with this one, maybe I'll end up picking up a few more, sort of queering the Greek myths, or just queering any kind of mythology in general. Because it is something that I'm interested in and would like to learn more about, but I just find the modern retellings aren't always where it's at for me. The next book that I picked up was Flèche by Mary Jean Chan. I bought this in Richard Booth's bookshop, which I think is the bookshop that kind of started the whole Booktown thing. Richard Booth is really the person that kind of took the Booktown idea and made it so successful, made it what it is today. And his bookshop is still in the town, and it's lovely in there. They've got a pretty extensive poetry collection. I find I often pick up poetry when I'm in there, actually. This is a collection that I've heard wonderful things about. It's by Mary Jean Chan, who I believe is a Chinese poet, certainly of Chinese heritage. And so a lot of the collection deals with that heritage, but also the author's queerness. I read one of the poems while I was in the bookstore. Can I find The Window? Yeah, I read The Window while I was sat in Richard Booth's to see what I thought. I enjoyed it. I'm always keen to read a bit more poetry. I don't read enough of it. This is one of those things that I'm always looking to read more of, particularly since I started reading Danez Smith, who is like my favourite poet of all time. I'm always keen to read more poetry, and especially queer poetry. Yeah, excited to pick this one up as well. I'm excited to read all of them, obviously, because I bought them. That's a very redundant thing to say. And then the final book that I picked up, which I think is another sapphic romance, is My Best Friend's Honeymoon by Meryl Wilsner. This was a bit of a guilty purchase because I have Mistakes Were Made by the same author. Have I read it yet? Don't be ridiculous. Of course I haven't read it. I've heard good things about that one. I've heard that it's very spicy. I imagine My Best Friend's Honeymoon will be much the same. I've heard really mixed things about this one though. I don't think this is generally people's favourite Meryl Wilsner, but we were in the cinema bookshop. It was $3.99 and I got excited, okay? I got excited to find a sapphic romance in there. I don't think I've ever found any kind of contemporary queer romance in the cinema bookshop before. To be fair, in the past I haven't always really been looking for it. I've very much become a romance reader very recently in the last sort of couple of years. I get really excited when I see queer books, and particularly queer romances in bookshops that are not explicitly queer bookshops. So I got excited and I picked it up, okay? But this book is about these two best friends. One is engaged to a man, the other one has been in love with her for years and years. When her fiance books the wedding and the honeymoon, she kind of freaks out and realizes that actually this isn't the trajectory she wants for her life, and so she calls everything off in a panic. The poor fiance, bless his heart, insists that she go on the honeymoon regardless because it's non-refundable. So she goes with her best friend, and I guess they start hooking up and things develop from there. Like I said, I haven't heard the best things about this one, but you know, when you find a queer contemporary romance brand new for $3.99 in a bookshop, sometimes I think you just have to take a chance on it and see what you think. I'm excited to come away from a book shopping trip with two sapphic romances. That makes me happy. This is my little Hay-on-Wye haul. Really pleased with everything I came away with. It's very typical me that everything that I bought would be queer. There were a few other books I considered picking up. I was very tempted to pick up The Housekeeper and the Professor by Yoko Ogawa when I found a copy, but I haven't loved what I've read from that author before. I read The Memory Police and I wasn't into it, wasn't a fan. The Housekeeper and the Professor sounds very different, but I feel like because I haven't had success with that author before, that might be one that's worth getting from the library, just in case I end up not being a fan. I didn't end up picking that one up. I was trying to be good. I was trying to be really good and not come home with like 15 books. I don't plan to film book hauls very often, but because it's a special trip, because Hay is such a special place, I wanted to share it with you. So I hope you enjoyed. I hope you enjoyed seeing a little bit of Hay-on-Wye if you haven't been there before. Let me know in the comments if you've read any of the books that I picked up, and if you enjoyed them. I'll catch you in the next one. Stay safe and happy reading.